Now we have done this. Let's just, for the fun of it, go to sheet 2 and play around a little bit with some shapes and some pictures, because I want to show you some things that you need to know about shapes.
Okay.
So why don't you go out there on the insert ribbon and just draw 3 or 4 shapes. Just grab a few shapes.
Okay. How's that?
Works for me. Now here's an interesting thing. If you are drawing shapes, Excel and actually all of Microsoft Office sees the shapes on layers.
Okay.
So the first shape you drew was
The first arrow going down.
the downward pointing arrow. So it's on that first layer.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second layer has the rectangle, and the third layer has the right pointing arrow.
Okay.
Drag the rectangle over the first arrow.
Oh,
Notice
yeah.
it covers it up.
It does.
Now sometimes you may do a couple of shapes and you want to stack them in a way to create an image.
Okay.
For example, maybe you want to have that rectangle a little larger and have the arrow inside the rectangle.
Okay, yes.
So why don't we first make the rectangle a little bit larger? And of course we still have the problem of that arrow is behind.
Mhm.
Notice the other arrow is in front because it was drawn last. So we can change its position.
Okay.
We can move it backwards and forwards. We still have the Drawing Tools tab open, and over on the right we have an Arrange area. And you'll notice that we have various things in place here, and in Arrange you'll see Bring Forward and Send Backward.
Okay.
So what we want to do is we want to take the rectangle and move it behind the arrow.
Okay.
And we have on our Drawing Tools tab, we have an Arrange group over near the far right.
Mm-hmm.
And notice we have Bring Forward and Send Backward. Now we want to send the rectangle backward.
Okay, so since that's the one I have selected, I have to pay attention to that, right?
Right.
And that's the one that I want to send to the back.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So let's click on the drop down there. And notice I can send backward or send it to back. We have 3 layers.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say the rectangle was on the 3rd layer
Okay.
and we needed it behind the downward facing arrow, which was on the 1st layer.
Mm-hmm.
Then we'd have to send it to back.
Okay.
But if I only want to move it back 1 layer, I can send backward.
Okay.
In this case, either one of those is going to do what we want
It'll
because
do
it's
the
in the
same
middle
thing.
layer.
Gotcha.
So you can do either one you want. And now you'll see that that arrow is actually on top of the rectangle. Now let's take the arrow that's pointing down and move it kind of into the middle of the rectangle.
Okay.
There you go. And the other one, maybe let's just pull it off to the side for a moment.
Okay.
Okay. So do you want to change the color of the rectangle or the color of the arrow?
I would say the arrow.
All right. Why don't you change the color of the arrow? All right. And notice one thing. When we select an object, you have the handles. We've seen the resizing handles several times. You have the little yellow diamonds that lets us change the angle or a point on the actual shape. We saw that with the call-out box, didn't we?
Yes.
There's also a green circle. And if you put your mouse over it,
Oh.
what did you see?
It turns into a different icon altogether.
Yeah, it's the circling arrow.
Okay.
This is rotate. And if I click and drag with that, I can change what direction the arrow is pointing in.
Aha.
And I can do that with any of the shapes. You select a shape. When you see that green dot, that's your rotate.
That's great.
Now there's other ways that we can change the position of something. Up in the Arrange area, notice we have a rotate option. And if you click on that one, on the drop down, notice I can rotate it 90 degrees to the right or to the left. I can also flip it vertically or horizontally. So if I need it to face the opposite direction, then the flips will help me there.
Now, this seems like it might be a lot easier for someone, or sometimes my hands aren't very steady, and so it would be hard for me to do
Sure.
the green circle, and this would be more of a, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to get it exactly at 90 degrees.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
Good.
That's another way to do it for you.
that's perfect.
All right. Now, another thing we can do is we can select the rectangle and select the arrow. Do you know how to select both shapes?
Using shift?
Yes, you hold down the shift key and select the arrow. Now they're both selected.
Okay.
Let's say we want to be sure that arrow is centered over the rectangle.
Okay.
Then we can align them.
Okay, that sounds good.
So back up to that same group on our Drawing Tools tab, and notice you have a line. And if you click on that, you have the option of aligning vertically, which are the first three, or horizontally, which are the next three. So it depends on, obviously, which direction I'm trying to align. So in this case, because it's centered over one, really it's not a big deal.
Okay.
But if, let's say, the arrow was below the rectangle and I wanted to make sure that they were lined up in a certain way, then that would be one of the top three.
Okay.
If it was to the right or the left of the rectangle, then I would use one of the next three.
Okay.
Since it's on top of it, let's just go with align center. And it, did you see it kind of
I did,
edge
nudged
back
back.
just a little bit? So this is a good way to make sure things line up really well for you.
And if we want it in exactly the center, would I need to go in here and align it in the middle as well?
Yes, if you want to be sure that top to bottom it's in the center, you could do that too.
Oh yeah, now it's in the center. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Good.
Now the great thing is, let's say we want to use this shape. Maybe we're putting together our own little logo and we want to use this shape. It'd be nice if it was one shape. Right now it's two.
Okay, yes, because we have them layered on top of each
Right.
other.
So let's select both of them.
So I just
And-
held down my shift key and clicked on both of them.
Exactly. Now what we want to do is go back up to the arrange area, and you'll notice you have group.
Okay.
Group lets me put shapes together into one item.
Okay.
So they become one shape.
So that way, if I want to move them around, I don't have to go through that alignment again. They'll stay exactly where I put them.
Exactly. And not only that, you don't have to worry about, did I select everything? Because sometimes we're putting together a diagram and it has a lot of shapes.
Okay.
And we want to group it all together and then copy and paste it somewhere else.
Okay.
So let's group it. And notice now, when you look at the shape, only one outline is there.
Oh, okay.
Now click away and click back on it. And you see?
And then I can move both of them at
Right.
the same time. That's great.
And you don't have to worry about grabbing both.
Okay.
If you decide later you wanted to change that arrow, maybe you wanted to change the color or change the size or write some text in it, you can ungroup. You come back to that grouping area, and ungroup will be available if you have a grouped item selected.
Okay. So I
Okay.
have to select it first, and then I go to the Drawing Tools Format ribbon, and then come down to Ungroup.
Right.
Okay. Got it.
Alrighty. So now that we're good with shapes, why don't we take a look at pictures?
Okay, let's do it.
All right.